Hello and welcome back for another Giant Slayer TFT Top 10 video. Today we'll be counting down the top 10 champions for the very first patch of Set 7, 12, 11. Okay, we say first, but there's already been a micro patch for a few of the more problematic champions in the meta. This has affected the top compositions a bit, though maybe not as much as everyone initially thought. As always, our criteria is focused on which champions are doing the best in their specific roles, and of course, consistency. With that said, let's go ahead and get started with the number 10 champion, Nami. Yes, Nami was nerfed, but she's not gone from the meta just yet. Nami still has a huge influence on both Astral and Mage because she still heals a lot and does decent damage. More importantly, Astral makes it super easy to 3-star her and makes playing mages so much easier. Point is, Nami may be nerfed, but she's still very important to several meta comps. It's also important to note that she's a 3 synergy utility champion, which helps keep her relevant despite nerfs. She heals, can provide Mystic, is easy to upgrade with Astral, and Mage is still a top performing synergy. What else could you really want from a 2-cost champion? We will point out that it's entirely possible that Nami falls further out of the meta as players figure out how to play around the nerfs, but for now at least, and for her dominance in the first few days of the patch, she deserves a spot in our top 10. Thankfully, this set seems to have actual impactful low-cost champions like our number 9 pick, Qiyana. While Set 6 had a lot going for it, most of the low-cost champions were quite meh outside of a few specific situations like reroll boards. Dragonlance, on the other hand, has plenty of 1, 2, and 3 cost champions that are amazing at certain points of the game. Qiyana is one of those champions as she's a great item holder and board stabilizer in stages 2 and 3. Beyond that, she begins to lose some value, but having Tempest and Disarm CC does help keep her relevant later on in the game as well. That said, her value is definitely early game focused, especially if you can 2-star her quickly. Qiyana 2 can propel your board towards win streaking, especially when paired with champions like Lee Sin or Kayn to make use of her synergies. One last note for Qiyana is her targeting. She's one of the best coded champions because she will look to hit her ability on as many units as possible every time, which most other champions don't do. Because of that, she goes up in value due to her being able to disarm multiple champions consistently. What's that? Another 2 costs in our top 10? That's right, the number 8 champion, Shen. There's a theme for Dragonlance that will likely permeate the meta for the whole set, and that's 3 synergy champions. For whatever reason, so many units are designed in this set with 3 traits, and that raises their value by a lot. Shen is one of the early game examples of a unit that benefits greatly from having 3 synergies. Bruiser in particular is noticeable because of how many Bruiser units there are and how many of them also have 3 synergies. This means flexing in a champion like Shen is quite easy to do. Ragewing has a few boards, both early and late, where Shen will definitely be played, and even though Warrior is a bit less common, the fact Shen shares 2 traits with Olaf makes him playable there as well. As you can see, Shen gets a lot of playtime due to those 3 synergies. But it doesn't end there for Shen because his ability is also quite good. Dodging physical damage will negate things like Xayah's Feather or Corki's Rockets, which makes Shen a pseudo-counter to those types of champions. The main issue, besides being a 2-cost champion, is that Ragewing champions don't gain mana from taking damage, so Shen won't consistently cast his ability. Heck, sometimes he doesn't even get 1 cast off. That negative aside, Shen is definitely one of the best low-cost champions and stays relevant throughout all of the stages of the game. Let's move on to a couple of 3 costs with Varus coming in at number 7. Varus was also nerfed alongside Nami and Sylas in the micro patch, and that's reflected here in our top 10 as Varus definitely would have been lower on the list had those nerfs not happened. As is, Varus is still quite good as a reroll champion for a few reasons. Being a swift shot means his attack speed is naturally high, which ramps up throughout a fight with Rageblade. His ability still does decent damage, and the stun is always useful. The most important part, though, is Astral. Astral makes 3-starring Varus so easy, to the point that players can hit him as early as 4-1 if they have enough gold to roll after leveling to 7. That's such an insane power spike at that point of the game, and once you've hit Varus 3, the chances of top 4ing go way, way up. Consistency is always important, and Varus 3 is consistently easy to hit unless multiple players are contesting. Is Varus the strongest carry? Definitely not, and even before the nerfs that wasn't necessarily true either. But any 3-cost champion that you can 3-star quickly is going to be strong, and that's the case for Varus. The other 3 costs coming in at number 6 is Lulu. There are plenty of potential 3 costs we could have talked about, but Lulu takes the cake in terms of versatility and value over the course of the game. Lulu is, you guessed it, a 3 synergy champion which inflates her value by quite a bit. Evoker may not be the strongest synergy right now, but it's still relevant to the meta. Trainer is often pivotal for mage boards and does well with Evoker since Trainer Revel is not an uncommon board. And then there's Mystic, an always useful splash synergy. Beyond her traits, Lulu has an amazing ability that can buff your units or CC enemy units. The attack speed stim is definitely worth having anytime you're playing a backline carry, especially if they're scaling champions like Xayah or Varus. And the CC is quite good, particularly against any would-be assassin players. Putting all that together means Lulu is an amazing utility champion with a lot of versatility, so of course, she was going to be in our top 10. Okay, for the number 5 champion, we went a bit overboard as this spot is jointly being given to Hecarim, Ornn, and Neeko. Yes, it's a bit of a cop-out to give one spot to 3 champions, but we have a good reason for this. All 3 of these champions are staple frontliners for the set, and in the current meta, they're all interchangeable. There are differences, which we'll talk about, but when you need a frontline with CC, any of Hecarim, Ornn, or Neeko will do just fine. The differences aren't too massive and mostly come down to their ability and synergies. Hecarim has the best CC out of the 3 because it can reliably hit most of the enemy board. The downside being, as a Rage Wing, Hecarim won't gain mana from taking damage, so more often than not, he only casts once per fight. Cavalier is also a bit more niche than, say, Bruiser, which is where Ornn shines. Ornn has 3 synergies, and as we've established multiple times, it makes him a really useful champion. As far as his ability goes, it's the least reliable because either he misses or dies before the secondary hit happens. That's an issue considering the secondary hit is the CC. Thankfully, Ornn makes up for that trolling by having Bruiser, Legend, and Tempest as his traits. Legend is a bit of a non-factor currently, but may be important in future patches. Tempest, as we talked about earlier with Qiyana, is quite good as a splash trait. Bruiser is definitely the highlight for Ornn, and it helps that there are a lot of bruisers to pair him with. Finally, Neeko has by far the best CC of the 3 because she will consistently cast it throughout a fight. While her ability doesn't hit as many units as the other 2, Neeko doesn't have any problems with missing or not gaining mana from taking damage, so she's consistently reliable. The downside for Neeko is that she has the least useful synergies. Jade does have a place in the meta, but not so much late game, and Shapeshifter is pretty low tier currently. That said, her passive of copying another unit does add extra value. All in all, even though each of these 3 champions are different, at their core, they share the same role: 4-cost frontline CC. Which you play depends on the situation, but chances are you will play one of them on your board since every composition wants extra frontline and CC. Up next, we have Xayah coming in at number 4. After the Varus nerf, Xayah has taken the mantle as the best all-around ranged carry in the current meta. She does a lot of damage, both AoE and single target, and has 2 synergies with built-in bonuses to aid her in that role. Ragewing may be meh for the frontline, but the fast-attacking backline units like Xayah will have no problems casting multiple times in a fight. This provides both Omni Vamp and bonus attack speed, 2 stats that are amazing on Xayah. Swift Shot is also an attack speed booster, so naturally Xayah is a scaling carry when utilizing Rageblade. Since Ragewing only takes 3 units and Swift Shot 2, you can easily build a flexible board around Xayah with just 4 champions as the core. That leaves room for more frontline, Swift Shot champions, utility champions, or just whatever you want. Shimmer Scale is particularly good for Xayah as items like Draven's Axe and Gambler's Blade scale well with attack speed, and if there's one thing Xayah does best, it's attacking quickly. Overall, if you want a reliable backline auto-attack carry, Xayah is the way to go. But Xayah is not the strongest damage dealer, as that title goes over to our number 3 champion, Yasuo. Yasuo is by far the best champion in terms of consistent damage output. Late game dragons like Shen and Aurelion Sol may be capable of higher numbers, but both of them take time to do so. Yasuo can get in there and start slashing away the enemy boards as soon as the round begins. A few reasons as to why Yasuo can be so good is the scaling on his ability, the fact that he has 3 synergies, and how mobile his ability makes him. Not only does his ability move him around the fight, he also CCs in a fairly large AoE. That damage can also crit. In the right situation, Yasuo 2 can easily clear out an enemy board within seconds of a round starting. And of course, having 3 traits helps Yasuo as you can flex him into a lot of different boards. Plus, Mirage adds even more since some of the Mirage variants are absolutely broken on Yasuo. Point is, if you need a late game damage dealer and have decent melee items, Yasuo is an easy pivot. Problem, as with any 5-cost champion, is being able to 2-star him at level 8. Sometimes this just won't happen, so Yasuo may be the strongest damage dealer, but not the most reliable. Next up, we have our number 2 champion, Bard. We're just going to go ahead and say Bard is probably the strongest standalone champion that's ever been in TFT. Bard has CC, 2 easily splashable synergies, and scales your shop odds with every fight. Being a guild member means Bard immediately gives your board value, and Mystic is super easy to play in general. And not only does Bard CC a large group of enemies, those enemies also take increased damage. But the real breadwinners are the Dutes. Each Dute increases your shop odds, meaning being stuck at level 8 is no longer that large of an issue. Being able to increase the 5-cost odds is hugely impactful, especially since you begin farming Dutes with just a level 1 Bard. Bard is amazing, and we recommend always using him when possible. With that, we reached our number 1 spot on the list, which goes over to the dragons. Alright, again, this is a bit of a cop-out, but let's be honest, all the dragons are really good. Sure, some are better than others, but every dragon can be useful. Idas is frontline, Saifen is damage, Xiaoyu for both tanking and dealing damage, and Deja is a backline carry. Then the 10 cost dragons are all good, though Shyvana is a bit on the weaker side for how much she costs. Basically, you're almost never going to be disappointed by having a dragon on your board, and if you hit either Dragon Horde or Dragon Alliance, your chances of top 4ing basically go up to 100%. Dragons are strong, and they should be for how much you have to invest in them, so go out there and tame yourself a dragon. Alright folks, that wraps up our top 10 champions for patch 12.11. We're skipping honorable mentions this week because, quite honestly, there's too many. This is mainly due to the set being new, as every champion looks nice and sparkly. Once the honeymoon phase wears off and a few patches come into play, we're sure it will be much easier to separate the useful champions from the not so useful. Let us know in the comment section below what your top 10 champions are, as well as which champion is your favorite from set 7. Remember to check out the GiantSlayerTV socials in the description below to keep up to date with any news, shows, or other content. Thank you for watching, and if you're enjoying our content, be sure to hit the like button and subscribe for future GiantSlayerTV videos.